Hello and welcome to another edition of the Dallas Aftershow here on JLJ Media. I'm James Lott JR. Here it comes. People have been asking me to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it now because it's ironically, as I'm recording this March 21st, this is out March 21st, March 22nd. It is the 41st anniversary of that big event that many of you who are not even Dallas fans have probably have heard of. But if you're a Dallas fan, of course you heard of it. Who Shot JR? Yes, March 21st, 1980, when I was 10 years old, almost 11, I was sitting in this house. This is the house I grew up in the front room, watching TV as we saw JR get shot at the very end. It is one of those things. It's arguably the most famous cliffhanger in history. I would say. I mean, there's some other great cliffhangers, but I feel like this one is one of the ultimate because this one, the Who Shot JR represents something bigger than actual JR getting shot, right? It represents a feeding frenzy on people wanting to know what happens. Um, so to take you back, he gets shot. We have to wait all summer. I used to have a T-shirt that had "Who Shot JR" on the family tree, and who was like who was who and who had a motive and all that stuff. And I lost those in the fire years ago. I'm so sad. I'm still trying to find them out there somewhere, like on eBay. But the whole world was talking about, like, seriously, I mean, this is a whole different time too. This was cable was just coming out. There was no social media. There was no online internet. It was the three big channels. We were all talking about it. It was a big deal. We all had our speculations. I thought Sue Ellen did it. That was my thing, but that's another story. Um, but it literally was this representation of literally people leaving people hanging. When the show came back in the fall, they did 4 episodes without even revealing who shot him. It wasn't until November 21st, 1980, where we find out, and spoiler alert if you didn't know this already, Kristen did it. But they really did milk it out. There's all kinds of stories. Of course, you can go on any site about Dallas. You can hear all the stories about how he negotiated the money, more money to come back because he felt it was his last hurrah. I think he was in his 40s or 50s, something like that. Like, I think he's probably around my age, and he was considered, done. Um, and I was just kind of like, okay, that's kind of great. That he worked it out for himself because his last hurrah. He had I Dream of Jeannie in the 60s, and then he had this. He felt it was his last hurrah, which was very smart. I heard they had other people in mind, like Robert Culp or somebody who was in the background, just in case he couldn't come to agreement. And he fled to Europe, to England, and I mean everybody wants to know. I should remember everybody wants to know. So that's why this cliffhanger represents like the ultimate in cliffhangers. Some say the Moldavian massacre on Dynasty would have happened if this hadn't happened yet. First. So it's kind of like the big cliffhanger is a big thing, and now cliffhangers are used in everything, of course, mediums. And yes, cliffhangers were there before, but I feel like the cliffhanger really came into view in the '80s. With things like Dallas and Who Shot JR, that really made it a huge worldwide event. It's still one of the most watched programs of all time. But for me, it was this really great thing of how the setup, as a writer, as a producer, as a watcher, the setup was great. Everyone wanted to shoot JR. No, we know we were going to shoot him. We were watching it, but everyone had a motive. There were so many people had motives. I mean, from Rebecca Wentworth to Cliff, of course, Cliff. I mean, everybody had a motive. Pam, JR had just ravaged through the season, just offending everybody, working on Sue Ellen and her alcoholism, offending Pam, offending. I mean, Rebecca Wentworth talks to Miss Ellie about you should fire him because because he ruined my. I mean, it was just all kinds of stuff was going on that season. Um, he had a lot of enemies. So the setup, so true setup, was really, really good. You know what I mean? Like it was a good setup. It was the way they did it. Um, and even there's some outtakes somewhere I've seen them, of course, where everybody gets a chance to shoot JR, of course, because they had to keep it. I mean, the secrecy behind us was amazing. But everybody's coming and shooting JR and making fun, and our folks were serious, and it just was this whole. I remember. I'm being taken back to the feeling, and maybe you guys might feel the same way. I'm just sitting there, and you don't know what's going to happen. There's no spoilers. There was just thing back then. You really found out in real time, but the anticipation. I don't think people nowadays would just go nuts. And sometimes TV does surprise us. Sometimes, still, it's very hard to though. But sometimes they do throw a surprise. You're like, what? Didn't see that coming. Nowadays it's harder. Social media with actors posting things they should be posting. Sometimes they'll post an innocent selfie, and if someone's in the background and that person wasn't announced on the show yet. I've seen that happen on some shows. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen nowadays where you're just like, that's not good. You need to like not, let things out there. So keeping a secret nowadays is so hard. Especially now people saying, I'm leaving the show and I'm doing this. And it's just tough. It's tough to keep secrets now. There's just too many people out there selling the scripts to tabloids and things like that. So and there's leaks everywhere. And so people want to know. People want to know. No one wants to wait anymore. I love a good surprise. I love a shock. I remember watching it as it was a show called Lost. And a cute character named I loved her, played by my girl, oh my God, Cynthia Watros. She gets killed. I remember there's a scene where like, this gun goes off by accident and it kills her, hits her in the stomach, and we're like, what? That was a shocker. It's just like that. I love when something like that happens. I mean, I don't love when that happens, but I mean, I was upset she was gone, but it was like, at least it was a shocker. There was something that was like, that you can still surprise me. I like surprises. I like to see something that I didn't expect. Um, or even I was expecting something, I want to see if they follow through with it. So I don't know how you guys are out there about that, but I love that stuff. So Who Shot JR really did drag it out. But they were smart. They didn't drag it out too long. They just dragged it out for a few episodes, 4 episodes, and then they gave it to us. And we went for the consequences from there. But it was, and it really made, I think it took Larry Hagman to another level. I feel that I think it's almost proven he became a superstar by getting shot. He was a star and became a superstar by getting shot. Who knew, right? But that was 41 years ago, people. 41. Do you remember where you were? Were you watching it? Did you remember what your feelings were? The anticipation all summer. Share with me. You guys have been so wonderful. I want to thank all the Dallas groups for letting me share this with them, and who are responding. I love it. I just think it's so. This is also on audio, so you can listen to it if you want to listen to it. You can watch it. You want to watch it on YouTube, JLJ Media, Dallas Aftershow. But I really did want to mark the occasion. 41 years ago, March 21st, 1980, JR was shot. Who shot JR? What a great cliffhanger. And later on, he was shot in the new series and he died. That's when they killed him off. So JR was shot a second time. I remember later, there was a whole scene in JR's office where the shots happened again, turn around the chair, and it was Bobby who got shot. Remember that? That's later. It is the 40th anniversary this year of the original Dallas going off air in May. So I'll be doing an episode about that. In May 3rd, 1991 was when it went off. I'll be doing an episode in May talking about that episode, Conundrum. It's a very interesting episode with Joel Grey playing Adam. So we'll talk about all that later. JR had been alive. But we celebrate Larry Hagman, may he rest in peace. We celebrate the brilliance of the writers and the crew and directors and the actors who gave us such a memorable episode that, maybe look on here again. For the November 21st episode, Who Done It, 83 million people watched, making it the highest rated TV episode until the series finale of MASH. Crazy. I'm James Lott JR. You can follow us at JLJ Media everywhere. The Dallas After Show. We have some great episodes. They're everywhere. And we will talk to you next time.